In a small seaside town where the cliffs blushed every evening and the gulls called out secrets to the tide, there lived a painter named Adrian Vale. He was known not for his fame, few outside the town had ever heard of him, but for his silence. He spoke rarely, smiled softly, and painted as though he were listening to something only he could hear. His cottage sat at the farthest edge of the coast, where the world felt like it was holding its breath before falling into the sea. The locals called it the House of Light, because no matter the weather, rain, fog, or storm, Adrian's windows always glowed faintly gold. And every evening, when the sun began to sink, Adrian painted the sunset. Every evening, without fail. But there was one thing no one could explain. His sunsets never matched the ones in the sky. Tourists would gather by the cliffs, painting and photographing the sun as it melted into the horizon. Yet when they visited Adrian's studio the next morning, his canvases would show skies that hadn't happened yet, colors the town would see only the following day. At first, people laughed. Coincidence, they said. A lucky guess. But day after day, Adrian's paintings foretold what the next evening would bring, whether the sunset would be violet and tender, or red with stormlight, or gold so bright it looked like the heavens themselves were remembering something they'd lost. No one knew how he did it. And Adrian never said. He only whispered, when asked, "I paint what's already waiting." One evening, a stranger arrived in town. Her name was Elara, a writer who had lost her words. She had come to the coast in search of silence, the kind that could wash a soul clean. On her first morning there, she wandered into Adrian's studio. It was filled with the scent of turpentine and sea salt, and sunlight spilled across canvases leaning in patient rows. She stopped before one painting. It showed the town's harbor beneath a lavender sky, streaked with the faintest silver, a sunset that had not yet come. "This one feels familiar," she murmured. Adrian looked up from his easel. His eyes were pale blue, like the sea when it was trying to remember the sky. "You'll see it tonight," he said simply. And she did. That evening, as she stood by the docks, the sky unfolded exactly as the painting had promised. It felt less like weather and more like déjà vu, a moment remembered before it existed. Elara began visiting the studio every day after that. Sometimes she would read old poetry aloud while Adrian painted. Other times they sat in silence, the kind that feels like two hearts breathing in the same rhythm. But one morning, she found him staring at a blank canvas, his brush motionless. "What's wrong?" she asked. He looked at her, a strange tremor in his eyes. "Tomorrow's sunset," he said quietly. "It's gone." "What do you mean?" "I can't see it," he whispered. "For the first time in years, there's nothing." Elara frowned. "Maybe you need rest." But Adrian shook his head. When the sky falls silent, something's changing. That night, Adrian dreamed of a shoreline where the waves moved backward, pulling the sky into the sea. A figure stood at the edge of the water. It was Elara, her reflection rippling across a world that wasn't his. When he awoke, the room smelled of salt and rain. On his easel was a painting he didn't remember creating. It showed Elara, standing beneath a violet sunset that he had never seen. The brushstrokes shimmered faintly, alive with motion. He stared at it, his heart pounding. The signature in the corner wasn't his. It read, "Painted by Adrian Vale." The next day, Elara didn't come to the studio. The wind had shifted, the sea restless and grey. Adrian searched for her along the cliffs and through the winding streets, but she was nowhere. When he returned, the mysterious painting was still there, but now, the canvas was changing. The colors deepened, the horizon breathing. The sunset was unfolding before his eyes. And in the center of the painting, he now stood beside her. Adrian stumbled back, realizing what it meant. The sunset he'd been painting for years wasn't just tomorrow's, it was his last. He understood now why the colors came from the future. He wasn't predicting the sky was remembering him. His art had been a message to himself across time, a conversation between the man who painted and the man who would someday fade. That evening, as the town gathered by the cliffs, Adrian carried a blank canvas outside. The wind tugged gently at his coat, and the sea roared with the kind of sorrow only it understands. Elara appeared beside him. She looked as she had in his dream, serene, almost translucent in the golden light. "You found me," she said softly. "I never lost you," Adrian replied. "You were always in the color that came after." She smiled, and together they watched the horizon dissolve into a brilliance too beautiful to bear. Adrian lifted his brush and began to paint, not what he saw, but what he felt. For the first time, his strokes trembled with peace. The colors were not of this world, warmth from a memory, light from a promise. When he finished, the canvas glowed faintly, as though holding a piece of the sun itself. The next morning, the townspeople found the easel standing alone on the cliffs. The painting upon it was radiant, the most breathtaking sunset they had ever seen. But Adrian was gone. Some said he had fallen into the sea. Others believed he had walked into the horizon he'd been painting all his life. As for the painting, it never faded. No matter how many years passed, its colors remained as vivid as the day they were born. Elara stayed in the town for a while, keeping the studio open. She painted quietly, every brushstroke a whisper of gratitude, every canvas a love letter to the unseen. And sometimes, in the reflection of her window at dusk, she swore she could see Adrian painting beside her, his hands steady, his eyes smiling at the colors of tomorrow. If you visit that town now, you'll still find the house of light perched on the cliffs. Its windows still glow gold, and through them, you might glimpse two figures painting side by side. And if you stay until sunset, you'll see it, a sky so impossibly alive that it feels painted just for you. No one really knows where Adrian's gift came from, whether from fate, love, or some quiet promise between time and soul. But they say that somewhere beyond the sea, he still paints the sunsets of tomorrow, one canvas at a time. And if you ever find yourself standing before a sky that feels like déjà vu, remember. Some colors are painted not by light, but by love that refuses to fade. The painter who captured tomorrow's sunsets, a soft breeze tale about time, destiny, and the beauty of things that wait to be seen.